Happy
I'll put
Thursday,
my
everybody. We got a great show lined up for you tonight, and we are hitting more than one channel, multicasting on both Facebook Live and YouTube. This is Night Terrors Radio. We're going to be talking, amongst other things, about book to movie adaptations. Which one bit a hamburger size shape of ass, and which ones tend to don't. We'll probably veer much more on the former than the latter. As with me, I have my wonderful co-host tonight, Mark. Don't put it there, Gray. How's it going, Mark?
It's going good. How
Not
you
too
doing?
bad. And Rob, I'll put it anywhere I damn well please, Bastille. How are you doing, Rob?
Oh, living the dream, and I will put it wherever I want to,
Which is why only you can have that
as
moniker.
long as I have permission.
I'm the innocent bystander, but silently in the corner doing something I shouldn't be, not for a man of my age. I am Ash Hamilton of www.horror-fix.com. And again, you are watching and listening to Night Terrors Radio. Hope everybody is getting the feed one way or another, whether it be on YouTube or Facebook Live. We will soon also be broadcasting to Twitch. You should also be seeing a link for one of our 50,000 Twitter followers. That's a big number. 50,000. So for one of our 50,000 Twitter followers, you should be seeing our link go out to actually watch on the Streamlabs channel. Man, we're everywhere. We're everywhere and nowhere. That's how much meta we're bringing your way, Mark. That's just for you.
Just for me.
Can we do the 50,000 in like the game show announcer voice? 50,000.
Yes, we can.
You know,
We're going to abandon all regional dialect tonight, put on our best radio voices so that people won't realize that we are definitely off of those most traveled highways and byways. I am having a long day. I don't know about you guys, and I hate to just bring up the self-pity immediately, but usually you won't see me drinking on the show. I'm drinking tonight. Not that anything went bad. It's just like one of those long days where you realize, like, you've been up 6 a.m., if not earlier, and you realize that it's probably going to be a longer night. Oh, I have some interesting news for those people who want, like, up-to-the-minute updates on what we've got going on, which I know everyone does, and I hope I'm right in that assumption. I'll also be belching quite frequently, so my apologies, everybody.
awesome.
So, we will have, within the span of about a week and a half, the official Horrorfucks. I actually said Horrorfucks. Why in the
Mush
world
Freudian slip there.
didn't I name the site that?
Because you're married and your wife.
That is my best and most awesome Freudian slip to date.
Probably would have gotten a lot more hits there, though.
Oh, yeah, it would. And I think we're probably getting a huge portion of the German constituent coming in from, again, horrorfox.com. So, in about a week and a half to 2 weeks, and maybe even a little bit sooner, depending on how we can fast track our development here at good old Horror Fix Labs, available on both Android and iOS platforms will be the Horror Fix app. So, I know, and you'll be able to register with the HorrorFix site, either through the site itself or through the app, which again, this will be native. This is not a web-based app. This is an actual Android or iOS app. You can register. Once you register, and this is pretty great, I'm just going to talk it up because of all the features that we have added, is that you'll be able, of course, to listen to Night Terrors any damn time you want. If you're not looking for YouTube, especially people who don't have the paid version of YouTube where you exit out of YouTube and it stops playing. Some people still have that, unfortunately. I'm amongst those people who do have that version. For those of you who don't want to scour Facebook Live or even get Facebook going, you can launch the HorrorFix app. You can listen to any of the archived shows of Night Terrors Radio. You can also get into our social media app, which is embedded right into the site, so you can create a profile. You can talk to other fans, not only fans of the show, but fans of cinema in general. You can do more than that. You can actually write your own reviews for the site. We have, at this point, over like 5,000 articles on the site, which is absolutely insane that there's that much content. And if you're wanting to write for HorrorFix, which we hope you would, because we will take free content wherever we can find it, and we're not ashamed of that, you can log in. You can even review your own film. You can review a friend's film. You can put horror news of maybe some, films that slip through our grasp. That's all available to you for free. You can also message horror fans in real time. They can message you back. So that's all going to be available, and hopefully that'll be available. We're talking about a week and a half, 2 weeks. The app is completely done. It's just a matter of putting it on the marketplaces.
I have a quick
Yes.
question. Are the boudoir pictures of you available on the
They're
app?
never not available through one channel or another.
Okay.
It just depends on how far down that rabbit hole you want to go. When we're talking about those pictures,
That's
that's a
all.
deep rabbit hole. Enough to comfortably sit your
That's
big
a
gulp
very
in it
deep
from what
rabbit
I've
hole.
heard. So first of all, since we have sort of a nice, sort of a very loose version of the show tonight, how has everybody's week been? Is everybody hanging in there?
Oh,
Yeah.
it's awesome here. I mean, Western New York, we're 60s and 70s this week, sunshine every day. Just been beautiful, beautiful, beautiful weather. Kind of makes you totally forget about the winters here.
So
Shut
you're
up, Mark.
yeah. I'm just saying, I had my lunch out on Huntington Beach Pier this morning, and it was beautiful, and the ocean rolling in, and the girls.
Well,
And by girls, Mark means anyone in a thong.
There were actually some of those out there. I was like, it's like I've been living out here for 10 years now, and every year it seems like the swimsuits are getting smaller and smaller to where they're at that point now.
now my big question mark is how many of those girls can you still get within 500 feet of?
Legally, maybe a couple.
Just a couple?
Anyone that flies in from out of town.
Well, my apologies, Mark's no longer able to canvass junior high schools, but I think it's a great thing. I think it keeps everybody out of trouble on both ends, and it saves Mark from having to hop door to door when he moves to a new neighborhood. So, and how about yourself, Rob? How's your week going?
It's going real good. This new job is going splendidly. I'm really happy there. Yeah, it's just last night I was sorry, Rob. I don't mean to rub it in, but me and some friends had a campfire out on the beach.
Well, if you don't rub it
Good
in, you got to
times.
wash it out. So,
All right.
there's your bumper sticker.
Yeah, cooked some dogs on an open
That's your
flame.
second bumper sticker.
Had made some s'mores. Oh yeah, it's been a pretty good week for me so far.
There you go.
And how about you, Ash? How is your
Not
going?
too shabby. Just busy. We've got a lot of irons in the fire. All good stuff. Which is good. Like all good stuff happening. I got some, big announcements coming up in the next couple of weeks. Nothing I can talk about officially on the air, but those things are good things for me to push some of my time, some of my efforts to, and just trying to sort of get into the swing of being back, in the 9 to 5 workplace, which is something that I do daily, and yeah, that's sort of where I'm at. Just a whole lot of stuff going on, but good stuff. It's not like I've got a whole lot of stuff going on and I hate what I'm doing. I'm doing good stuff. It's still was sort of time exhaustive, but I'm putting in the hours, man. I'm doing the work.
But
When
you don't come home every day. Because I remember these days, both of us, we'd come home from work and we were like, let's just eat a bullet and end it now.
Oh yeah, bullet cereal.
Yeah.
That was my favorite. Death O's, basically, is what you'd call them, hyphen O's. But yeah, I'm lucky. I think one of my saving graces is the fact that I'm permanently remote, and I can't begin to tell you just how good that is, not only from a wellness perspective, like a mental health perspective, but also from a financial perspective. Like, you don't realize just how much money you spend Like I'm one of those guys that I'll stop by a gas station to get $10 worth of gas, and before I know it, I've bought like a water, I bought a Gatorade, I've got like like trail mix, and that $10 gas receipt suddenly inflates like to $23 and quickly, right? I mean, that stuff inflates pretty quickly. So for me, I can't believe the amount of money I've been saving working from home. It's been
Yeah.
huge.
See, I'm on the other end of the spectrum. I actually prefer going into an office and having the separation from work and home, to where I get out and I leave the house and I go in. And, I mean, I'm on a motorcycle, so I don't really pay that much for gas, and I'm only 5 miles from work. So, yeah, a tank, like $10 in gas will get me through an entire week.
Yep, I can understand that.
Well, I I have some news for you. I submitted my mileage for March for work. Um, Mind you, I work Monday through Friday. I work only in New York State, and I submitted 3,100 business miles for the month of March.
Holy Toledo.
Yowza.
I don't think there's a road in New York that I haven't driven on. Now, that may sound crazy, but my office is my car. The actual physical office for my company is in Buffalo, which is 60 miles away from where I am. My boss lives in Binghamton, which is 2 hours from where I am. And we do everything remote. It's like I go and drive in, drive out kind of stuff. So I kind of feel you, Ash. It's, you drive in, you get that hunger pain, you stop for, gas, and then you have to get that $8 4 ounce bag of trail mix.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, we'll
you
we'll,
know,
we'll go ahead and like coin a phrase here. With that many miles, you've been Magellaning the hell out of that.
oh, dude, but I love it. I mean, like today, I drove along the shore of Lake Ontario for a little while,
Nice.
and then I drove along the shore of Seneca Lake for a little while. What's wrong with that? I mean, it was just, you know, big deal. It's driving, but it was gorgeous out, not a cloud in the sky. It's during the day, so it's not congested traffic. It's just driving, customer to customer. Had a great time. And then the past couple weeks got to do some really cool stuff. Went to a new theater in a town called Greenville, New York. Awesome, awesome setup. Got to see like how the theater industry from the inside, showing a movie and all that kind of stuff. So cool to see stuff like that. I get out on the road and see some crazy, crazy things.
So I want to discuss sort of a controversial subject on the show tonight, at least for people in and around the entertainment industry. When you approach any kind of creative endeavor and there's some kind of public basis for it, you're adapting, a musical into a film, and especially adapting something like a book into a film, man, there's a lot of detractors because before we have any real clue what we're getting from another creator's perspective, we've got this idea of the way that we think things should look, how a character should be portrayed. It's got to be a huge and overwhelming endeavor for creative professionals to take on projects that have there we go, these pre-existing stories, right? I mean, it's got to be daunting. It's got to be such a task to do that. So tonight we're gonna dissect it a little bit, take a look at some of the ones that worked, some of the ones that didn't work, and maybe some of the ones that got it half right. So I know that you've got a few that you wanted to talk about, Rob. And there's one in particular that I think is interesting because this has been a widely debated film, and it's been very split, very sort of torn down the center. You've got a lot of people that really liked sort of that epic scale of World War Z. The fact that, I mean, let's face it, for a film with that kind of subject matter, getting somebody like Brad Pitt behind it, getting the kind of money it had behind it, I mean, this was a near impossible task. No one thought that this thing would have been made into a film. And even though we got to see, a few of those more cinematic elements present in the book, very different from the book. Not only in the way that the book wove its narrative, but there were obviously some scenes we were really looking forward to, from the book that we didn't get. But we also got some very stunning imagery. So I know you wanted to talk about World War Z. Give us your take, Rob. What was your opinion on World War Z, the film versus the book?
Well, I read the book and then I heard the film was coming out, so I read it again. Like, oh, I can't wait. I can't wait to see how they do this, or I can't wait to see how they do that. And as I was reading the book the second time, I started realizing that the adaptation of doing these interviews and piecing together the news stories and piecing together all the little pieces was going to be next to impossible. So that it was going to have to be different. There was almost no way to put it all together, book to movie. There was almost no way to do it. So I kind of erased my brain when I walked in there and went in with, let's see what happens. And I think, you kind of touched on it. There was a couple of things I was like, I wish they had done that. But then there was a couple of other things that I was like, wow, all right, I get it. They took this away, but they gave us this. And I thought, it came away a pretty good movie. It really did. Nothing like the book. Some of the names were the same. A couple of the events were the same. But other than that, it was one of those, loosely based on a true story kind of things.
Right.
And it was, they basically gave us what I thought was a very good movie from a book adaptation. They took what they could, used what they could, and gave us more. So I was impressed with it. I really was.
I think that some of the things they got right, and that like thematically, when you read the book, the one thing that's very impressive about it is the scope. When we hear about even American battles versus the dead in the book, these are huge, epic benchmarks for depictions of the zombie invasion. That was one thing that impressed so many people is when you read the book, it so vividly depicts, what could only be described as, events that if you were there watching, like you're not seeing the beginning of the end of the world, you're literally sort of seeing everything getting ripped asunder.
Yeah, I was looking forward to seeing the zombies half frozen in the snow. Still, I was still kind of, that was like, when are they going to do that part?
Yeah.
And
And they've been, teasing this idea of a sequel, which it's very difficult now because so many things that were greenlit, obviously, once COVID, really took a hold, were pushed to the back burner, were sort of thrown to the wayside. There were a lot of films, a lot of series, and especially sequels where the franchise sort of got put on hold. And, World War Z2 was one of those because it's been talked about, and the various different directors have been thrown around. People have been attached to it here. People have been attached to it there.
I'm trying to find the name of the town that they was in. I don't know how you say it. Greater Chongqing, the United Federation of China. So having an outbreak of a virus that comes out of China, we've kind of been there, done that for the last year.
Right. Yeah.
No one's really going to be that scared. Fuck it, I'll just put my mask on and wait for those shots.
Basically, yeah. And that's a good point, though, Rob. It really is where publicly, in the public conscious, are we at with films sort of that caliber right now? I mean, are we really to the point where we're just looking for a lot of fluff to take our minds off of things? Or, are we prepared to sort of take a more, I guess, introspective look and look at these films now and say, oh, obviously we didn't get a zombie invasion, but our daily lives were invaded, right? I mean, are we sort of ready to turn that magnifying glass inward, because it does say a lot, not only about, human nature, what happens when there's sort of a global emergency, but I think it also says a lot to not only the American people, but the global people, about what happens when you think that your tax dollars are working to protect you, and there's still this huge level of unpreparedness, right?
Yeah, and I mean, realistically, I think I think we might be steering away from the virus movies for a little while, because I think it's just going to be one of those things that people are going to be, about it,
Yeah.
and I think we're probably going to be getting into more of that, fluff and, that kind of stuff, to just get people thinking about anything other than world changing, you know, viruses and death and
Not gonna lie though, I did kick off the initial lockdown last year with watching 12 Monkeys.
I reread The Stand, so
Well, this is the same reason why, as soon as the Yuletide bells start sounding, we're putting on The Thing and Black Christmas and Silent Night, Deadly Night.
right,
I mean,
yeah.
the three of us do sort of come from, the club of nothing sacred. So,
Oh, the least sacred, the better.
Yeah.
Well, we were talking about, you know, this past weekend, for the Christians, there was Easter, and we were trying to find the most. We're trying to think of the most non-Easter movie out there. Like the anti-Easter movie, and I think we settled on Jesus Christ Vampire Hunter, which again, to bring it up twice in 2 weeks, but that was what we settled on.
And
The least Easter movie you can
I
find.
ended up watching that Saturday night as well.
Okay, review.
I thought it was fantastic. It was like one of my favorite things watching that was the people in the background that had no idea what was going on. Like they're in this public park, and there's this guy dressed up like Jesus fighting off all these 30 people that climbed out of a jeep. Everybody's just kind of sitting on the side, like, what are these guys
Eating their
doing?
sandwiches, having a picnic. Like, what's going on?
I think I'm going to have to do a triple feature because I have not watched it yet. But I've been wanting to revisit Wolf Cop. So maybe I'll do a
Oh,
Wolf Cop Velocipaster Jesus Christ Vampire Hunter triple feature.
Now, see, I still need to watch Velocipaster. I ended up picking that up. It was on sale on Vudu, so I grabbed it, but I haven't had a chance to
Mark, it's
watch
an
it yet.
experience.
That's what I
we just
hear.
we just watched FDR American Badass.
Oh my God, that's great. Tell me there's a t shirt
Um,
somewhere.
the the best part about it is almost everybody in the movie is somebody you know from other movies. Bruce McGill, um, D-Day
Mm-hmm.
from Animal House. Barry Bostwick is in it.
Wow.
It's like there's like big names in this horribly shot movie, and it's the best. FDR succumbs to polio from an infected werewolf bite.
Of course. Can
So
it be any
I
other
don't know
way?
if there was a I don't know if there was a book before it, but if there was, it sucked compared to the movie.
Now, have either of you, because I haven't seen or read this, but have you guys read or seen Pride and Prejudice and Zombies?
No.
Yes.
Okay.
How was it?
Well, there are several like insert classic literary novel here and zombies books out there.
Yeah, that was the one though that kind of like kicked it off though. I think that was the origin of these and zombies books, if I remember
Well,
correctly.
yeah, I mean, there's Interestingly enough, there's this weird kind of self awareness that like Austen's novels had after the fact. I'm pretty sure when you were reading Pride and Prejudice, when Pride and Prejudice was first released, it didn't have that kind of quality of being self aware. And then, sort of as even though it being a classic, like when you started to get into like the 1980s and the 1990s, suddenly it took on this weird new life, right? And it became this like barometer for this weird sort of like, the new age of like kitschy female empowerment kind of stuff. It was strange.
Right.
And then you got to like the zombie thing, which sort of like was this next like organic step for Pride and Prejudice. I mean, like watching Pride and Prejudice, any of the adaptations now, because we all sort of know the story about Mr. Darcy and everything. It becomes like a parody, right? It's like a parody because it's sort of like this. It's a story that, although it definitely has its roots in the way America sort of looked at women of self confidence, right? But now it's
Right.
sort of like I can see more drag queens than empowered women loving Pride and Prejudice, right? It's just sort of moved into that territory. So it's like, yeah, why the hell not put zombies in it? Like it's the next organic step for it.
I have a feeling that if you watch, the actual Pride and Prejudice movie in the future, you're going to be wondering, why they remade it without the zombies.
Yeah,
I could see that.
yeah. It's like the novelty surrounding everyone's take on Pride and Prejudice, which, let's face it, even Bridget Jones' Diary was, even though it referred a lot to Pride and Prejudice, was really nothing more than a modern take on Pride and Prejudice, right? It was just sort of a Hall of Mirrors kind of thing. So there's a lot of meta in that film, strangely enough. And then to actually have Colin Firth in the films was, even more meta. So we've had, it's weird again, like that novel, this classic novel has taken on this weird second life. I mean, I love the fact that it has, that it's become something totally different, and it's sort of become like it's the pincushion now. Like we'll take the pincushion of Pride and Prejudice, and what kind of weird fucked up pins can we put into it to make it something else? And the pins in that instance, were zombies.
It's almost like the cover version of a song becoming more popular than the original.
I say, Mark, you'll probably be the only one that ever watches this that gets this, but Dred Zeppelin. I cannot listen to Led Zeppelin now without hearing Dred Zeppelin in my
without
head.
hearing Elvis and reggae. You just
Right.
can't do. I actually saw those guys live at NAMM a few years back. It was hilarious. They were just like I'm jamming on this little stage in a hotel. It was
See,
a great show.
I'm more of like a county fair fan of AC/DC. Like you won't see me listening to a lot of AC/DC like on my own, right? But if I'm like at a
Right.
county fair where I've had like two really watered down beers and AC/DC comes on, look at my buddy and go, woo, some of that stupid shit. But now that, I've heard Hayseed Dixie, I don't want to listen to AC/DC anymore. Like, give me Hayseed
Right.
Dixie. It's like, again, we have that barometer, we have that baseline,
Right.
but the fact that we've just given it, we're not peeling away the onion anymore. Like we're just putting more layers on it. And by the time we're at the end of it, it's like, we finally have reached Hayseed Dixie. And it's like, it's wonderfully tongue in cheek.
We're not peeling away the onion. We're at the hibachi place making the fire shoot out of the onion.
Right. Yeah. I mean, this guy is literally throwing ukuleles in the top of his fucking hat. Like that's AC Dixie, and it's great. And that's sort of Pride and Prejudice of Zombies is the Hayseed Dixie of Jane Austen novels.
There you go. See?
So bringing it.
That's
back
my
now.
quote for the back of the DVD, by the way. If they ever re-release like the Blu-ray, the Hayseed Dixie of Jane Austen adaptations.
There you go.
Yeah, when you do the Blu-ray commentary.
You never know. I've got
Right.
2 under my belt. You know that, right?
Testicles?
Oh no, I said 2.
Oh.
And I didn't say in somebody's purse. I said under my belt.
Oh.
Yeah. Did you guys know that I have 2 actually produced Blu-ray commentaries under my belt.
I knew about one.
Yeah. Well, one unfortunately I has not been released yet, but the other one has already been released, which was Transylvania 65000,
I knew that
the
one.
80s, you know, sort of like
Classic.
it's sort of a take on the Zucker brothers do Universal Monsters, you know. But yeah, which strangely enough, you know, there's my 6 degrees of Jeff Goldblum. If we're going to talk about Jurassic Park later, you know, it was Jurassic Park, and boy, it was Joseph Bologna and a few other guys that were, you know, I mean, Gina Davis. It had for the kind of film it did. It had this wonderfully bizarre, Michael Richards. It had this wonderfully bizarre cast to it, and sadly, I ended up knowing way more about that film than I should. And so, if anybody ever wants to get, there's a German company that produced, and I've actually got a real funny story about it, by the way. So there's a German company that produced, and I shouldn't be talking about it. I don't fucking care. It's already out. So there's a German company produced this new Blu-ray, right? With, I mean, it's a great edition of Transylvania 65000 because it's like the ultimate edition. They've got a full color booklet that comes with it. It's got a ton of extra features on it. And one of the extra features is that, you know, I do the Blu-ray commentary with this guy who also is a host occasionally on Night Terrors, Jim Chandler, who is a huge movie buff and knows a lot about Transylvania 65000 as well. So for whatever reason, we're doing the commentary. I might have been drinking a little bit, but anyway, we're doing the commentary, and I end up mentioning like Nazis like a lot, right?
Oh no.
Oh no, wait, it was not. I'm sorry, it was not for this Blu-ray. It was for another Blu-ray commentary that we're doing that happened to have Sybil Danning.
How many beers have you had
tonight?
Yeah, how deep are you tonight, Ash?
Yeah, I've only had like 3/4 of one.
Right.
But it's another film that we did a commentary with Sybil Danning in it, right? So, and Sybil Danning again, you know, it's Sybil Danning. You know, like She-Wolf of the SS, Sybil Danning.
Right.
So I have a lot of, for whatever reason, Nazi themed jokes about this one film and Sybil Danning's portrayal in the film. And, you know, then my co-commentator happens to mention like, this is for the German release. You can't do that. They're still touchy about the Nazi issue. Needless to say, we were about 3/4 through the recording, and I think it was pretty brilliant, and we had to re-record the whole thing.
Oh no.
And it was all my fault because I couldn't stop talking about Nazis.
So coming back on topic now, Ash, I know there's a book series that is very near and dear to your heart.
Yes.
That a movie adaptation was recently made. And how did you feel about that Dark Tower movie adaptation?
I feel like if someone were to come up to me and say, hey, I know that it's easy to make a milkshake. We're going to get you some ice cream. We're going to get you some milk. You know, we got a blender. We're going to make a milkshake, right? And I'm watching them make this milkshake, and for whatever reason, they pull a fly swatter out of their ass, a bunch of pralines, and some Tonka trunks, and throw it in that fucking blender and mix it up. And the entire time I'm looking at them going, that's not a fucking milkshake. And then they put a sticker on it that says fucking milkshake. And then they give it to me to drink. And for
World's
whatever
greatest fucking milkshake.
and for whatever reason, because I fucking hate myself, I see this movie / drink this milkshake. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, this tastes like shitty fly swatters and toy trucks. I knew it was going to taste like this, and I drank it anyways. So, yes, it's shitty fly swatters and toy trucks. And it was so bad.
The sandpaper dildo of movies.
Oh, it was. You know?
Can we put it on the back of the Blu-ray box?
Like this is an even worse depiction, but for whatever reason, somebody walks up to you and says, hey, listen, I'm going to kill your entire family, or you're going to get a good Rogering, right? And you're like, oh, Jesus, great. Give me the good Rogering, because I'm not going to be able to live with the idea of my family being dead, not this time around. And you're like, thank God, because they sort of spit on their hand, And you're like, okay, at least this guy's got some sort of decency, right? And all he does is slick his hair back, and you're like, oh, buddy, that's the Dark Tower movie now, isn't it? It's the equivalent. It's the equivalent. Just
Yeah.
squeaks that hair back, squeaks it right back before he gets down to a little bit of how's your father. So, yeah, it's so bad. It's just so bad. And, you know, I told my wife going in, I said, I'm going to hate this. I'm going to absolutely hate this. And yet it's almost like it's an addict sort of personality trait where I feel myself walking into the theater, and I know I shouldn't be. You know, it's like I'm walking right towards my dealer. I've been clean for a long time, and he's just sitting there, and I'm like, I can't even feel myself move my own legs. I'm an automaton. I'm on cruise control. Right into that seat to get intellectually fisted for a good, like, and the movie's like an hour and like 20 minutes long. It's an incredibly short movie for a movie that was made, get this, off of 7 very, very lengthy novels.
Intricate
novels. A novel that was produced post end of the series that served as a sort of a shoe in between 2 episodes. A novella that was written in another series of short stories. We're talking an entire series from Marvel Comics that were in canon about these stories. And somebody was like, yeah, we can do an hour and 20 minutes.
I got a 7-year-old with a crayon. He can write something.
It's like a game of telephone. It's like I'm in first grade again. And, you know, the teacher's like, you went to the market for a potato and a tomato. And at the end of it, what I got is fuck you. That's how that message translated from my grocery list to me sitting in front of the Dark Tower. It just failed on like every single level. I can't believe that anyone involved had done anything but read the cliff notes on the, you know, inside dust jacket for one of the books. It's like that game of telephone.
They just read the bottom of the Walgreens receipt. That's all.
Yeah, it's exactly what they did. And it was everything, absolutely everything. First of all, the Dark Tower books, you know, hence the fucking title, are dark. This is Stephen King's sort of magnum opus, right? I mean, this is something that he wrote. I mean, we're talking the first book was published in what, like 1979.
Yeah, this is something that was written over a span of like 35 years.
Yeah, he put a little love into it.
This is sort of one of his swan songs. I mean, even though King will be remembered for so many different stories, so many different adaptations, I mean, his name is as synonymous with film as it is his books. He's transcended, you know, all of these different genres. His name attached to it. I mean, let's face it. If you're a horror author, there's absolutely no way that you can't be compared to Stephen King. You know, it's just that much of a staple. And it was just horrible. And I didn't want to hate it that much because I do have the ability to look at an adaptation and go, okay, here's its strengths, here's its weaknesses. It's not exactly what I wanted, but overall, it's a different medium. It was a translation. I didn't mind it. Like, I've done that in the past. We're going to bring up I Am Legend later. I have some thoughts on that are sort of aligned with that. But I think what it was is that it was, again, not incompetent filmmaking, but it was a ton of studio involvement where they were looking for a tentpole franchise for young adults, right? That was something that they really, really wanted to do because, it's made Warner Brothers so much money. There are other series, a few that you can name that didn't work so well. The Philip Pullman novels, unfortunately, didn't really get the kind of following they were hoping for. Even though, again, I heard that those novels were much darker than the way they presented them in the films. The Divergent novels, which were sort of, I guess, hit and miss with the young adult crowd. The Twilight adaptations, which made a ton of money for the young adult crowd. So they were looking for this next tentpole young adult franchise. And unfortunately, instead of choosing a series of young adult books, they took a series of highly celebrated, critically acclaimed, very dark adult novels and tried to make that translation. And there was just no connective tissue. It was horrible.
See, here's what I thought about this too. That movie came out in a time after we had a Harry Potter series. It came out after we had Lord of the Rings. It came out after we had all these series where it was like a book to movie ratio. Why didn't they just make The Gunslinger? And then make Drawing a Three, and then on and on and on. Do each movie as an individual, or each book as its own individual movie, instead of trying to cram 7 movies into an hour and 20 minutes.
I think the only sort of production company or, just an entertainment company that had it right was, Amazon had created a pilot for a series. So there is a pilot. There is an hour-long episode of The Dark Tower out there that didn't get picked up, which is strange, because from everything I heard about it, the casting was pretty much spot on. They were choosing a very unique but I think smart approach to it. I don't know. You look like you were going to say something, Rob.
I was just going to say that when the check with the right amount of zeros and the right name crosses the right desk, that's when things happen. And that's the only reason I could think that they did what they did, because I mean, I am a huge Stephen King fan. The second I find out that a Stephen King book is coming out, I pre-order it. I'm already, he just had one come out at the beginning of March called Later. I'm already through it, done, loved it. Having read the series, again, I'm with Mark. There should have been 9 movies total covering it, and we as a public have proven to sit through a 3-hour movie adaptation of a book that doesn't even bring up Tom Bombadil,
right?
And we will tolerate it.
Dude, we'll
not only tolerate it, we will love it.
Oh, I can mainline Lord of the Rings.
We'll sit through a 3.5-hour movie with people with capes.
Right.
We've held up a 22 movie franchise.
Let's face it though. When it comes to, there's still a huge disconnect with the people that market movies and the people who make them. There's a huge disconnect. I basically call it the director's chair to suit conversion. Like, we've got the creative endeavor, we've got the director's chair, we've got people with vision, and then we have a bunch of people in suits. Let's face it, these are not people who have been to film school. These are not people who have liberal arts degrees. These are people who specifically are there to manage creative endeavors. That's their job. They come in to manage and market.
And they love to say things like, "Beautiful, babe. Thanks, babe. You look great, babe."
Right. And they're on their phone half the time anyways. So it's like, how much are they really digesting? Because they're like, well, that necessarily isn't our demo. No, I'm telling you, it's not our demo. It's definitely not a demo. No. We're down about 3 points this week. I swear to God. Seriously, swear to God. Yep, no, I've got it done. Yep, definitely. I mean, there's these weird, like, fast talking sort of, it's all this jargon. It's just like, I can feel the pain of these people who are working to produce vision, right? I mean, even if you're a director on a project that I guess you probably don't get, you still want to try to produce the best possible thing you can. And after a while, you're going to get moderately attached to it. It just happens if you're a true creative individual, and I'll bring it up briefly, but this whole Zack Snyder thing, here's a guy who had 4 hours worth of film, and there were some creative differences, some problems with his family. And, when he left, people told him, don't even watch the version that came out. Like, don't do it. Don't put
Yeah.
yourself through it. Don't see your snippets of your vision, woven in and out of this shit sandwich. Like, don't do it. So, it's a common problem in Hollywood, and we hear it all the time. We heard it, pre-internet about the Batman films and studio involvement, and how those got very, very twisted and malaligned. So, yeah, I think there's a separation between the same people that market these films and the actual fandom that really does pay for these films. I mean, we got to be realistic at this point. You've got average moviegoers and you've got average moviegoers that buy tickets. But when we're looking at stuff like, the MCU, we're looking at the Marvel movies, or even, the DC movies, and we're looking at Lord of the Rings, and we're looking at Harry Potter, fandom is paying for these movies. They're paying for it not only with the tickets they buy, but the physical media that they'll buy 3 and 4 times over when special editions are released. They buy it with the movie tie-ins that are produced, everything from action figures to baseball hats to coffee mugs. They are paying for these films, but for some reason, these people in marketing departments, they don't get it. They still don't get who's paying for the films.
Whereas
got
the
one of-
Dark Tower are paying for it in another way.
I've got one of my absolute favorite film to marketing things ever. I took a picture of it. If there was a way I could hold my phone up to the camera to show you, Ghostbusters was on TV. And I hit the little, I meant to hit pause, but I hit info. And the description was scientists with nuclear weapons fight ghosts in New York City.
That's great.
That was the info about Ghostbusters.
I just see Vinkman shooting off the fat boy.
Doesn't that sound like such a darker movie, though?
Yes. But scientists with nuclear weapons fight ghosts in New York City.
Like half of it.
Okay.
Like half of it has to have this sort of like, pre-Manhattan Project tension to it. Like, we can't do this. We have to do this. It's like that conversation is in that version of that alternate version of the Ghostbusters out there.
Yeah, like, instead of what did you do, Ray, it's got to be more like, what did you do, Ray?
Exactly. They're talking about Fallout and the size of the Twinkie. It's just
right.
there's a much darker movie apparently.
But it's so totally like somebody in marketing had never seen that movie and just went, sounds good.
Speaking of Ghostbusters, have you guys seen the 2 trailers for the Ghostbusters Afterlife?
I'm afraid of it.
I saw the Paul Rudd clip that they just released
with all the little mini Marshmallow Man.
Don't talk about it. I'm like cringing right now.
It's actually I think they might do this one right.
Rob just laid an egg.
A review.
I just heard it hit the floor and crack.
for Horror Fix, it's on the site. It is there, and I believe it was "Hey Bill Murray, fuck you." When Harold Ramis was alive, he just couldn't seem to get his shit together long enough. The script is terrible. Okay, asshole, you just did Garfield, Tale of Two Kitties.
Right.
But the Ghostbusters script wasn't good enough. Eat my ass, Bill Murray, you jagoff. Fuck you. Everybody holds Bill Murray up like he's some kind of fucking god. He's an asshole. He fucked everybody over. He's a piece of shit. I hope Bill Murray hears this, and I hope he comes and knocks on my door. Fuck you, Bill Murray.
I hope he does too. That's
you
huge numbers for this show.
Great.
Oh, yes. This is gonna be like a YouTube sample clip, I think.
I'm so scared of this Ghostbusters thing because they did the one. They took 4 of the funniest women I know and put them in a movie that there was no chance whatsoever they were going to get a laugh
All right,
at all.
Rob. All right, take a deep breath. I'm going to tell you
Yeah.
something that may give you a little bit of ease, though. It is written by Ivan Reitman's son, Jason Reitman.
I'm terrified
I'm
of
waiting
it.
to hear the second egg fall on the floor and crack.
Yeah, it just
So it is still in the family.
in case you haven't noticed, like my entire collectible shelf is Ghostbusters, and like you name it, I've got it, kind of thing. And it just when they did that, I mean, come on, you know, the four those four women are hysterical women, and that movie, uh, I would watch The Dark Tower before I watched that movie again.
Wow.
I would watch The Dark Tower twice with my eyelids propped open with toothpicks rather than
I
watch
think if
that
I had to watch
Ghostbusters.
both those movies back to back, there'd probably be some Harry Carey in order. I don't think I could make it through both of those
See, I
again.
guess my problem is like, man, like Ghostbusters was such a it was like a moment to me. I went and saw that movie and I was like, oh wow, you know,
See, here's
and
what I love about Ghostbusters. That I think that they completely missed in the 2016 one is like it is a legit horror movie. It just happens that the people all this horror is happening to are really funny people.
Yeah.
yes,
Uh,
yes, it's it's that whole there's that moment of like I you know I don't like when they come out at the top of the apartment building,
yeah,
you know, and aim for the flat top, they're like the little jokes that are in there. That's like a scary scene,
yeah,
actually, if you really think
Yeah.
about it.
yeah. They're
And
heading
and
up
it
the
just
side of a skyscraper. You know,
right.
there is death looming.
Well,
There was just something about it, and that's, I mean, to quickly segue, it's another one of my pet peeves is I read a book called Ready Player One. Have either of you had a chance to read it yet?
I have
No.
only seen the film. I have not read the book, and I have been criticized highly for very long periods of time for not making my way to that book yet. It's on my
You need
shelf.
to.
It's sitting there currently.
Ready Player One is a love letter to my youth. It's all about playing Dungeons and Dragons and knowing all the video games, putting quarters on the marquee of the video game to be the next player, um, involvement in 80s music and videos and the blowout of MTV and all the incredible things that took place in the 80s. And it's just such a love story to my, you know, early to mid teens of that time. And I was so excited when the movie was coming out. It even like my book says right here that Steven Spielberg, um,
Yes.
you know, I'm like, ooh, Steven Spielberg, and what a great story. And then I went to the movie theater and remember your story about the
Oh yeah,
milkshake, Ash? My guy was making the same milkshake while dancing a Michael Flatley jig on my nuts
it leaves a
wearing
bad
golf
taste in your
shoes.
mouth.
The movie was horrendous compared to the book.
All right.
And I
Well,
have tried to separate myself from the book. I just can't. I remember walking out of the theater and looking at my friend Brian, who went with me, who is also a huge fan of the book, and both of us going, "Oh my god, that sucked. How did we make it all the way through that?" And then this kid walks up next to us, and goes, "Are you guys crazy? That movie was awesome." And I just wanted to like grab him and shove the novel in his face and say, maybe you should read every once in a while. It was, oh, it was horrible. It was just, it broke my heart. It's that feeling that you got from I got the same feeling from Dark Tower. It was, why did you do this? Why? Were you that desperate for a money grab? Did someone, you know, did someone have naked pictures of your aunt and a llama and you had to make this movie?
Yeah, I mean, anyone that saw me in the
It,
audience, I mean, I looked like I had shell shock. My head was shaking back and forth. I didn't even realize it. I was just in disbelief that this is sort of what they decided to do with it. I mean, it's it. There's not a great difficulty when you do have that kind of amazing subject matter, which is you've got it right in front of you. You know, you got it right in front of you. It should be paint by numbers, but some people, unfortunately, they just instead of getting a paintbrush, they grab a toilet scrubber and they're like, it'll do. Maybe not so much.
There was a bit of a warning though on that label on Rob's book. It says directed by Steven Spielberg, a guy who has not made a good movie since Jurassic Park.
which coincidentally, great book, better movie.
So now Spielberg's career is something that we can definitely devote an entire show around. But let's go ahead and let's take a stab at talking about Jurassic Park for a little bit because that was one of the other books that you were going to bring up, Rob. So give us your opinion on Jurassic Park. Obviously, you thought the film was better than the book. So what elements do you think were those outstanding elements?
It was the visual aspect. When you talked about, like, when I read Harry Potter, I was envisioning, like Diagon Alley, and I was envisioning
Diagonally.
all the shops, and I could I could diagonally. What did he say? Um, I could see it in my mind, you know. And there was something about Jurassic Park that, like, the book was a solid A. The movie was an A plus 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 because the dinosaurs were visual. They were there. And there was something about, like, trying to envision dinosaurs in the book that I just couldn't do. I mean, I got it. They were supposed to be terrifying and, kind of thing. But when they were there, when that dinosaur is, chasing the Jeep and, Jeff Goldblum must go faster. There's that, it just was so cool to see that, in motion, to
Yeah.
see those dinosaurs, like, you got the real scope of a dinosaur that was, I don't think was ever really captured in a movie before.
And, as far as I watched that not too long ago, and my first thought while I was watching, actually not my first thought, but while I was watching it, it certainly came to my mind. It's like, man, these effects have held up so well over the years,
Yeah.
so well.
It was, there was just something about, the book and the movie close. There's a bunch of intertwining themes, very close. They swap the big deal that, in the book the boy is older than the girl and whatever.
Yeah.
Those kind of things happen all the time. But it was that, as a kid going to the Museum of Natural History and seeing the T-Rex skeleton, and then seeing, you know, bad dinosaurs, caveman with Ringo Starr dinosaurs, and then here this Jurassic Park was, and I almost had that feeling like when Dr. Grant, is like taking off his glasses, and and he's, he reaches around and turns Dr. Sadler's head towards the dinosaur, that look of awe.
Yeah, like,
It
wow.
was
Was
it was awesome. Just an awesome adaptation to be able to see, and then being able to take that story and go, now I get it. Now, it's a Star Wars thing for me. Like, I love Star Wars. Huge Darth Vader fan. Huge Darth Vader fan. You don't really realize why people are so afraid of Vader until the last 5 minutes of Rogue One.
one.
when he
Yes.
just is obliterating everybody and just like crushing dudes and holding dudes up in the air and cutting them in half with the saber
Yeah.
and just obliterating like 50 guys. And you're like, oh, I get it now. That's why the galaxy was afraid of Vader.
Or looking like at the end of Attack of the Clones, where he just goes in, and he just slaughtered all of those kids without a second thought. It was like,
It's
oh shit,
right.
it
That's
just
when you
got
get
me.
that. That was Jurassic Park for me. It was that moment of like, wow, it great book, even better film. Loved it. Every time it's on, I end up, if there's 10 minutes left, I watch the last 10 minutes of the movie. If I'm flipping through channels and I see Jurassic Park, I stop.
We
I
have to
can't help
remember
it.
too that so Jurassic Park really signaled the return of the dinosaur film. We had not had a lot of dinosaur films really since probably the mid 60s. It was just something that we just started sort of, it just died out. And a lot of it was because, let's face it, the technology that we had, we were just seeing the same stop motion dinosaurs. And even though obviously they were
Yeah.
impressive the first time we saw them, we saw a lot of that Ray Harryhausen great stop motion stuff. After a while, it just sort of got to be comical. Like we didn't really have a great way to introduce dinosaurs in a believable way again, so that not only were they awe inspiring, but they were also, sort of terror inducing. And then we finally got that technology. I don't know if anybody's ever heard the story of the guys that were originally brought in to do the dinosaur work. Have you ever heard that, Rob? So
No.
originally, all the stuff that started getting shot pre-production for Jurassic Park was stop motion. There was this new stop motion technology that they were trying to use, which essentially was sort of like tweening. So in animation, what you have, not believe it or not, it's not a sexual term for pedophiles. Like there's this process in animation called
There goes the
tweening, and it's
German
at least
fans.
$200. But there's this process called tweening, and essentially, it's where you take so you take like a red rubber ball, right? And the ball,
And you put it in
right,
your mouth.
you put it in your mouth, and then you do something called turkey stuffing. So you have the red rubber ball up here, and you let the ball go in animation, okay? So when you let the ball go, all you really have to do is take the ball and essentially just move it down the screen. That's all you got to do until it hits the floor. And then when it hits the floor, so that it interacts with another, some solidity, the ball squishes, right? That's how it looks when it squishes. So what you have is you have the ball, and then you have the squished ball. So any iterations of what the ball looks like between round ball and squished ball, you have to do in betweens. And what they call that process tweening, okay? So there was this new process of stop motion animation where they were doing tweening with this. So instead of them doing, they were still doing the one frame, they're still doing the 30 frames per second. They were still doing the move it a little bit, snapshot, a little bit, snapshot, a little bit, snapshot. But they were doing this tweening process, which essentially was a way for them to sort of motion blur what was happening in between, so that it was more like 60 frames of animation versus 30, and it was much smoother, right? So they had all of this new sort of stop motion technology that they were going to use, and they had their demo reel, this company that had been commissioned to start working on the stuff in a pre-production capacity. Now, there was another company that was commissioned, which was a company that was starting to do spleen and mesh-based 3D modeling. And they said, listen, we've got this process that we're really, really proud of. Let us take a shot at this too. So unfortunately, both companies were present when they did their footage reveals. And the guys that were part of the stop motion team, seconds into the 3D footage, looked at each other and go, so what are you going to do for the rest of your life? It was like they just knew. They were vacuum cleaner salesmen that just saw the bigger, better vacuum cleaner. What are you going to do with the rest of your life? So it was such an impressive departure even from the newest ways of stop motion animation and the way that they were modeling to this new process that was practically seamless. That, even then, Spielberg, I'm sure, thought to himself, holy shit. Like, I was going to create this epic, but we've managed now to create a motion picture that, in the same vein as Star Wars, is highlighting this extremely new, impressive technology. We're pushing those boundaries. And by the way, Mark, I know you said nothing since Jurassic Park. Catch Me If You Can is still a hell of a lot of fun. And Christopher Walken is great in that. Okay.
All right, I'll give you that.
Okay.
I'll give you that one.
Leo.
Catch Me If You Can is, I mean, it's such a nostalgic film. I love the Art Deco, and I love Christopher Walken in it. It's so much fun about a guy that essentially is duping everyone, this sort of, criminal mastermind. But I do really enjoy that film.
I think I watched that with you
probably
Jersey,
because it was that film I didn't expect to like. I have since actually become a DiCaprio fan because I think the guy's a hell of an actor. But he hit that period where it was like after Titanic, it's like, I got to see that fucking guy's face again. But then, he started to, man, I mean, some of the stuff he's done, like even Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which I had a few mixed reactions to. The guy's just brilliant in that, and just about everything else that he does.
See, I have not seen that. I have written off Tarantino after Kill Bill 2.
Well, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, if anything, just for the Brad Pitt Bruce Lee fight is a cool movie to watch. But no, Jurassic Park, I mean, you're right. It's like it is a spectacle. That movie, it does give you the feeling that you are inside this amusement park. You're having as much eye candy as like you were saying, looking at Sam Neill on screen. You're feeling what Sam Neill is feeling because you're looking at dinosaurs in a way you've never seen them, and he is at the same time.
And like I said, the book was fantastic. I highly recommend reading the book. But the problem is, if you've seen the movie and you read the book, you can now, your imagination is opened a little bit further. And, again, I was born in 1966. A brontosaurus was still an actual dinosaur. There is no such thing as a brontosaurus anymore. Right. That's, long gone. We've gotten rid of all that. And so like the dinosaur mind to me was like the little plastic dinosaurs that had the Stegosaurus up on two legs.
Yeah.
With like whatever. But or the Saturday night, creature feature with the iguana and the paper fin glued to its back, fighting the gecko. You know,
or Japanese guy in a rubber suit fighting Toby
out of town, right?
Well,
so it just was, man, it was amazing. And in a completely different side note, I've owned Jeep Wranglers pretty much my whole life, and when my kids were born, I kind of got away from it for a little while because I just didn't have the free money. And as my kids got a little bit older, I got another Wrangler, and then when all the kids were out and everything was done, and I started looking for a Wrangler again, and I actually purchased a Jurassic Park Wrangler.
Nice.
It is not painted the Jurassic Park colors, but it is the actual make, model, year, everything that they used in the movie, and I love that thing. Oh God, it's
You still have it?
Oh yeah. I put it away during the winter. I'll pull it out in another month or so, and no top, no doors, and just go.
Yeah, I'm actually working my way towards getting one. As soon as I get some bills paid down,
there's nothing like it. And it's so weird. Like, people go, "Oh, hey, nice Jeep," and I go, the first thing out of my mouth is, "Yes, it's like the one from Jurassic Park." Not thank you. Not hey, cool. Do you like Jeeps? No. Yeah, it's the model from Jurassic Park.
Yeah, And Wranglers are like all over. In fact, right across the street back here is a Jeep dealership.
There you go.
So I went over. I just walked over. I got my Renegade.
Well, I think we've got time for one more, and this is one that Mark can definitely comment on. Is that we mentioned briefly our thoughts on the novel I Am Legend, and I mean, there's been several incarnations of it. So Mark, if you will, give us your thoughts on sort of the legacy of I Am Legend book versus film.
It, it is a fantastic book. Of the three films, none of them have gotten the ending right. They've all been good in their own way. Omega Man was a little cheesy, but the Will Smith one I really enjoyed. But the thing that annoyed me about every single one is that they completely missed the point of the ending of the book. And that is and the title. The ending and the title is one and the same. The main character in the story at the end they come to the conclusion that he is the legend to the vampires the way vampires are a legend to us. It's like, oh, this thing we always hear of, but you never see it, but they'll kill us, on first sight. That's what he turned into to them. He was their vampire,
Well, the way that
essentially.
Matheson talks about, just for example, the building of the Panama Canal in the book, there's this idea that the running theme of the book is that heroes and villains are interchangeable when one culture supplants another. I mean, there is a very strong social undercurrent to the book. There really is. And the fact that, we are all villains to some culture. We easily get vilified, whether it's through propaganda, whether it's through misinformation, or whether it's just through oratory, storytelling, is that we're all going to get vilified. Anybody who's been in a relationship that didn't make it, myself, quite a few, I can tell you my side of that story, but I'm sure there are definite angles where I can certainly be vilified. I can be villainized, undoubtedly. And I Am Legend has that. It does. It has this take on it where, you've got basically the last stronghold of humanity, one dude's fucking house. It's like he's it.
Yeah.
And this idea that, you think he's just killing scores and scores of vampires, and you're sort of rooting for him because he's so tortured in his loneliness and in his desperation. But by the end of the novel, you realize, man, he's somebody else's boogeyman. He is the boogeyman now. And plus, there's such iconic imagery in the book that's extremely difficult to translate to film because, first of all, it's extremely dour. It's extremely somber, sobering kind of stuff. And it's difficult to get the kind of money into a film and then to give people that kind of dystopian sort of film when you have that kind of money, because dystopian films classically are, a mixed bag for especially for American audiences. But I'm with you, Mark, on the fact that I think it's hands down Will Smith's best performance. Regardless of his Oscar nominations, regardless of everything, there are some genuine moments in that film where he transcends being Will Smith, and that's difficult for an actor with his kind of charisma to do.
Yeah,
it's like that moment in Jurassic Park we were talking about. There's moments where in that movie you're like, oh shit, it's amazing. Again, I'll third it. The ending, whatever. But it's one of those things where, like, to throw kind of a joke out there, in Naked Gun, when Leslie Nielsen and it comes out of seeing Platoon, and he's like, that's what American audiences want.
Yeah.
So there's no way you could actually really do a true adaptation of I Am Legend. because
No,
American audiences would walk out of the theater going, "What the fuck did I just
Yeah,
watch?"
and it's got too
exactly.
hard
You
of a
know,
religious implication.
and
I mean, the end is almost a literal crucifixion, and it's like, oh man,
Yeah,
that's a difficult
right.
one. Like that's a bitter pill for a lot of people to swallow.
But another author that's also very difficult. Many have tried, but it's just very difficult to capture the feeling, the look, just the all around weirdness of it. H.P.
Oh
Lovecraft.
yeah,
yeah,
The only person that I can think of that's got it right, as far as like the Cthulhu mythos of anything, is Stuart Gordon with Dagon, Dreams in the Witch House. Was he did Reanimator? That was,
From Beyond, which had a lot of
just
like,
he.
I'm staying up late at
Oh,
night to
that's the
watch
other one I
this
was
for a
trying to
certain
think.
but
scene with Barbara Crampton, and it kind of appealed to me.
if you read about him though, he was like a fan. This wasn't just a franchise that he went, all right, I'll take it
Yeah,
on.
he loved
No,
it.
he was into it. So when he got the chance, he was like, yeah,
Well,
we're gonna
before his
do
death, he
this.
served as
But
an actual
Dagon.
producer for the stage play for Reanimator 2. I
Oh
I
yeah.
mean, this guy stuck around.
But
Yeah, he was into it, and that showed.
but Dagon was such a great adaptation of Shadow over
Yeah,
Innsmouth. It had
and,
Dagon
and
in it
some Call
too,
of
but
Cthulhu elements. I
like
mean, it had like a few of the stories sort of wrapped up in one.
but it did it so well, even though it's a little modernized. But yeah, nobody's gonna go see like a movie set in the 20s with you know nowadays. Everyone's like, oh, it's old time. I don't care about that. Yeah, so he had to modernize it a little bit, and he did a fantastic job of doing it where it needed to be done.
And we'll
It was his love for the subject
and we'll at
material.
some point
Yeah.
also get into to Color Out of Space, the Richard Stanley adaptation, which unfortunately Stanley has now been canceled due to some abuse charges. So we were supposed to see a Lovecraft trilogy out of that
Mm.
guy, which would have been pretty amazing because Color Out of Space was pretty fantastic. But it doesn't look like that's gonna happen
Was.
now. But no, I think we've covered a lot of ground tonight, a lot of ground, and I want to thank everybody also for really bringing to the table these things about film that we like and how attached we really get to some great ideas that are obviously up to everyone's interpretation. So we don't have anything scheduled yet, I think, for next week. We've got some things we're going to try to rearrange, but stay tuned, everybody. We'll start posting stuff on the Night Terrors page, as well as showing you where the new calendars are at, things of that nature. Does anybody have any parting words before we go, guys?
If we don't have a show for next week, it's going to be an hour and 15 minutes of me just berating Bill Murray.
Well, or we could just do adaptations part 2, because there's still more that I want to talk about that we didn't even get a touch on tonight.
Maybe that, and I'll do 45 minutes on
Well,
Bill Murray.
I want to
Sounds
thank
good.
everyone who was with us tonight, watching and commenting. As always, great to have the interaction in chat. We actually fixed that chat now, so it's not 48-point font, where you get about 2 words on screen at the same time, if that. So also, everybody, like I said, definitely look out for the app, which will be coming your way. We'll post links to where it's available on the Play stores as well as on the Apple Store so that you can download it. We've got a lot of cool things coming, a lot of things with the Horror Fix brand attached to it. Thanks so much, everybody. You guys are going to stick around for just a couple minutes right after we get off the air. Rob, Mark. Okay, thanks,
course.
everybody.
Sure.
Have yourself a fantastic night. We will